It is fake trade season. Of course, the NBA draft on the horizon, but we don't care about the fake trades. We care about the why, of course. And so we got a fake trade offered to us to consider with our friends at Locked On Blazers. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is May 22nd, 2023. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to chat with our friend Mike Rich from Locked On Blazers because he's got a trade offer for us to move up to the number 3 pick. We're going to chat a little bit about what the Magic are thinking, what the Blazers have to offer, and yes, we will dive into the bigger issue that always comes up when the Blazers call, and I do bring up some bad Magic history as well. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment on this crossover edition of Locked On Magic. But before we do that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We're going to get into the conversation with Mike Rich here in just a moment, but first I just want to let everyone know kind of how this came about. He explains it a little bit in the show as well, but he reached out to me today. He's doing a bunch of podcasts for Locked On Blazers, just talking about what the Blazers might be able to do with the number 3 pick. And obviously the Blazers are in this weird spot where they have the number 3 pick, but they also have Damian Lillard, who very clearly doesn't want a rookie, doesn't want to rebuild. He wants players that will help them win now. Obviously, that's easier said than done. So he reached out to me and said, hey, there's been a lot of talk on the internet. There's been a lot of like credible people like John Hollinger and Sam Vecini of The Athletic pitching a deal for the Magic to trade up to number 3 using both the 6 and 11 picks and perhaps even swapping Yusuf Nurkic and Wendell Carter. So he wanted to have me come on and talk about the deal. And I said, yeah, absolutely, of course. It's a good chance to talk about our rosters. And I just want to use this time before we dive into the conversation, just remind everyone that fake trades are not about the trades themselves, but about the why. Whenever a trade rumor comes up, I ask, okay, A, who is trying to leak this and what purpose does it serve? And I think that's what we do a really good job of in this conversation. So without further ado, let's hear from Mike Rich and myself on today's Locked On Magic crossover.
I am joined for a special crossover edition by host of Locked On Magic, Philip Rossman Reich. Phil, how you doing?
I am doing great. Happy to just have something to talk about because the basketball right now isn't so great.
Hey, listen, we're in the same boat. I think maybe the Magic had a little less rocky end of the season, but once you get into May, it's been a long time since we've watched an NBA basketball game with our teams that we cover involved in any meaningful way. So I'm thankful to do these. I've done a bunch of these fake trade shows, so we're going to do another one today. What brought us here today is the holy matrimony of two teams separated by 2,800 miles. A trade that has kind of been floating around the internet. I will say the first person I saw it from was listener Scott. Shout out to Scott for sending me this email. Then I heard it on Sam Vecini's podcast. Then I saw John Hollinger write about it in The Athletic. This is in the zeitgeist. And the deal that we will discuss kind of vaguely and then specifically in the show involves the Portland Trail Blazers, owners of the number 3 pick in the NBA draft, sending that to the Orlando Magic in exchange for number 6 and number 11, and then a swap of 2 big men, Yusuf Nurkic heading to Disneyland, and Wendell Carter Jr. coming out here to the rain in Portland. Phil, this is a big thing, and you were telling me this is a big thing in Magic World too, in the Magic sort of basketball sphere. Where has this popped up for you and your folk?
Yeah, I mean, obviously those national outlets have been talking a little bit about it, but I think a lot of Magic fans see the players at the top of this draft as 2 guys that can help this team kind of take that next step. And really, from the Magic perspective, that's what this next season is trying to take that next step into playoff contention. And, we have Paolo Banchero, the rookie of the year, a guy that looks very much like a star. A lot of Magic fans just want one more bite at the apple, one more top guy to add to this group with, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, probably the two main guys, and have that be the core of the team that they can begin to build around over the next 2-3 years to get them not just into the playoffs, but yes, title contention. As far away as and impossible as that seems, you need talent to do it. And so picking sixth is great, but this is really it's a one-player draft, but there are two other players that are at least in the conversation among the top tiers. And so to have another bite at that apple, I think is something that is attractive to a lot of fans.
Yeah, I mean, so let me get your thoughts on this. It seems like Scoot is sort of ready-made for what the Magic want to do. If Scoot Henderson is off the board at 2 because Charlotte just says, let's take him because he's good and worry about fit later. If Brandon Miller is there, does that change your personal interest in the number 3 overall pick?
I think that Brandon Miller is really, really interesting because he does seem like he's the kind of player that can fit into these kind of a 3 big lineup like the Magic would have to play to play him. I agree the fit isn't perfect, but the talent is undoubtedly there. The biggest need that the Magic have is shooting. They've been a poor 3-point shooting team ever since Dwight Howard was traded. They need guys who can just make an open shot sometimes. And so among the top 3 guys, or at least between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller is by far the better shooter. If the Magic are tempted at 6 to take one of these more developing future stars like Amen or Asar Thompson, if they fall that far, their shooting has a long way to go. And so if the Magic do want to swing big in this draft, if they want to try and clear the fences, hit a home run, hit a triple, round the bases, if we're going to continue that metaphor a little bit longer, Brandon Miller seems like he's the guy that would fill a big need that's missing in this lineup. Personally, I'm skeptical of it because I think right now the Magic have to do a better job kind of building and surrounding their key players, and that's Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, with the right guys. And we saw earlier in this season when the Magic had a lot of injuries, they started Bol with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Franz lost a lot of his defensive edge trying to guard twos. And yes, there's a lot of switching in the NBA today, but I don't know if that puts Franz Wagner in the best place for him to develop, because you have to remember he's also a really young player that has a high upside.
Also, like if you come down the court and you already have a mismatch, you're not going to hunt a switch. You're not going to say like, oh, this dude's a 4 guarding 2s. Let's just go. Like, don't set a screen. Let's see if he can guard me. And yeah, it's I'm with you. I think there is a world in which people think Brandon Miller can guard 2 through 4. It's just like, he's probably not going to be able to do that in October. So it's defense is really hard for young players in the league. Like it's really hard. You kind of mentioned this, and I want to touch on this a little bit more. The Magic they were kind of the internet darlings. Everybody enjoyed the Magic this year. I think it's been a long time since that was the case.
Understatement of the century.
Yeah, I think it's been 15 years, roughly 14. I guess 2010 was the last time people truly believed. But what do they want to do? Like, is this a team that is comfortable being like cycling down a year? Are they going to chase 8th next year? Like, what are the Magic doing, and how will that kind of inform how they would approach specifically this trade and sort of more broadly this whole offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I don't think this isn't maybe the reason why I'm skeptical that they would try and trade up to 3, because I think that's a little bit of a bigger swing than I think they want to take, especially with the assets that it would take to get to 3. But I do think the Magic are at least very serious about flirting with potentially being a playoff team next year. Paolo Banchero said this during his Rookie of the Year acceptance ceremony. The Magic had a big to-do at their practice facility to give Paolo the trophy. He said even through the first week of the playoffs that he and his teammates were all talking, and they believe it's playoffs or bust next year. Like they believe that they are really close to a postseason berth. This season, to most of the NBA, 34 wins isn't a big deal. And you're right, it isn't a big deal, but they improved from 22 wins. They were 29-28 over their last 57 games. They started the year 5-20 because of injuries to their entire point guard room. I don't know if they, to football reference there, I guess, but all their point guards are out. They really, really struggled. They got off to a 5-20 start. They couldn't recover from that. 29-28 would have put them 7th, I think, in the Eastern Conference the rest of the way. So this is a young group that I think is using this season as confidence to say, like, hey, we can compete. We can win a little bit. And especially in this Eastern Conference, we are right. We can be right in the mix, and we can beat a lot of teams. They got a long way to go. They got a long way to grow. And I don't think it's a sure thing that they get there, but I do think the way the Magic are going to approach this summer is they're going to do things, I think, to put their team in the best spot to make that run. They're not going to get in the way and say, like, hey, we want one more year. We want one more bite at the apple. We want one more lottery pick. I think this team has moved beyond that. I think this team wants to take that leap into play-in contention. Let's think small maybe.
Finishing 8th, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're a young team. They were the 3rd youngest team in the league last year. That's where they should be at this stage of their development, and they should be again using the season to learn. Okay, what does the playoff magic look like? They don't know that answer yet, and the only way to find out is to actually play games.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna have to ask Gary Harris. Hey, G? Well, what are the playoffs like, G? Yeah, so
he's literally the only one on the roster that's been there.
I was just off the top of my head. I was like, I cannot think of anyone who's has playoff experience other than my boy G, a legend, a Nuggets legend. So I think so. I've done a couple of these fake trade shows. That's what I've been doing because the Blazers have 3. It's a shiny new toy, and they've got plans. They have big picture dreams.
They're not
of
rebuilding.
Being good in a hurry. I mean, maybe they should. Like, I think there's a lot of the fan base that thinks they should, but that's not what they want to do. As an organization, they want to build around Damian Lillard for the umpteenth million time and give him a chance. And they feel like under the new front office, this is they've been kind of cycling down the last 2 years to give themselves this spot. I think this trade, why it appeals to me, and I want to talk about this in the second segment, is like, this is a chance to do step 1 of 4. and they're kind of in a space where they need to set themselves up to have 4 steps. So let's talk about this trade. Let's talk about how it appeals to the Blazers, and if we can get the Magic on board. But first, let's talk about PrizePicks. You want to win $1 million? Well, from now through the NBA Finals, one PrizePicks user will get a chance to become a millionaire. One entry placed at 8 a.m. Eastern. After 8 a.m. Eastern, don't get up too early, will be randomly selected each day. Whoever placed that entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. If you get 6 correct picks, you win $1 million. You get 5 out of those 6, you get $80,000, and 4 out of 6, $16,000. For full details, you can go to prizepicks.com/1million. You must opt in at that link, prizepicks.com/1million. PrizePicks.com/1million to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be a lucky winner. So why not get involved every day? And the best way to get involved is just to download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com and sign up to play the daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, they're going to give you $100. You deposit $50. They'll give you $50. Don't forget, use that promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100, and you could be winning $1 million just by playing every single day. All right. Just chatting here with Philip Rossman Reich, host of Locked On Magic, site expert at Orlando Magic Daily. Yeah, we got your credits in the second segment. That's what we're doing here. We didn't get your credits up top. Credits in the second segment. Phil.
As long as it gets said.
Yeah, exactly. They had to wait 12 minutes. Stick with the program, baby. So I think for my listeners and for yours, the Trailblazers have the 3rd pick in the NBA draft. You may be familiar with it. It's shiny and special, and they think it's this big trade piece. But they don't want a 19-year-old in part because their star player said, "That's enough with 19-year-olds." It's a direct quote. He said that route is not my route. That's not like a trade demand, but it is a pretty clear direction. My man is pointing to the beach. It is that away. You got to follow him. He doesn't want to get a teenager, even a special teenager. He wants them to cash in this pick 3 for a big splash trade. Now, I have done other shows where I've pitched trades for Mikal Bridges and Pascal Siakam. I don't like the Siakam trade. He's entering the last year of his contract. I think offering Anthony Simons and 3 for Pascal Siakam is just a risk not worth taking that you will regret. I think the trade for Mikal Bridges is probably an overpay. But at some point, you kind of just have to overpay if you're going to go this direction. And if you're committed to building with Dame, this is kind of what you have to do. Whatever is that good process, good plan, whatever. That's a debate for another show that we will do later this week. But like, that's the direction that they seem to clearly be leaning, right? That's the direction they seem to clearly be leaning. That's why I like this fake trade that listener Scott and Sam Vecini and John Hollinger and others have cooked up. Because this would give the Blazers, they trade out of 3, they get 6 and 11, and trading 6 and Anthony Simons could probably net you something similar. Maybe not as shiny, but something similar. And then you still have 11 to either draft or trade. So you want to package 11 with some other parts and you can make another move. They've still got 23. They can add. They don't have to go all in and trade it all at once. They have a chance to have sort of incremental chances to get better. But it is in many ways dependent on the Magic playing ball because it takes 2 to tango. And so you mentioned the Magic don't really want to dip down again, right? It strikes me that trading to 3 and getting, let's call it Brandon Miller, right? Like just for the sake of it, because it seems like Scoot's going to go 2 as of we're recording this on the evening of May 21st. This stuff changes. This is lying season. Folks are out there lying. So things may change, but as of right now, kind of seems like it's going to be Miller at 3. Would the Magic consider it and why? And then we'll get into the center swap after that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just from a talent perspective, I think they have to consider it because at the end of the day, I said all those things that they're 29 and 28. This was still a team that did not, I think, won 3 games in a row once after their December win streak. They're a 500 team.
Right.
And I think that it's still pretty clear that this team still needs a talent upgrade. There's still spots where they can get better. We'll get to the center stuff, but I think there are real questions about whether Wendell Carter is a playoff center. Markelle Fultz has a lot of the same questions. Is he a playoff point guard? Like he's nice in the spots where he's nice, but is this a guy that's going to get you over the hump and get you in the postseason and then thrive in the postseason? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to build. You're trying to build a playoff team, and you think you have a centerpiece in Paolo Banchero. You think you have another good piece in Franz Wagner. And you just got to figure out how everyone fits together. And so, is Brandon Miller the right fit? Like I said earlier, I have my questions, and I think the Magic want to be a little bit more focused with what they're going after and what they add to this group. They're not looking to just mush talent together and see how it works and figure out what the problems are and then make moves. I think they feel like we can start kind of seeing what this team looks like. Maybe it's not fully formed. Maybe it needs some edges sanded down, but I think they see what their playoff team looks like. And look, Brandon Miller is very much a Magic type player. Maybe they do feel like, hey, Brandon Miller is going to be better than Franz Wagner.
How long is his what's his wingspan?
Yeah. He didn't get measured at the combine, unfortunately. So that's the mystery.
Can he play for the Magic without a wingspan measurement? That's crazy.
I know it's insane. It's insane. But it's possible that maybe they see him as a better fit next to Paolo than Franz because of his shooting or because of his size or because of whatever. And they can say, let's piece it together now. And, we have one in reserve to trade for the big star, which, might be the trade that's, step 3 and 4 of this process that the Magic are in right now. Maybe that's something we talk about a little bit later. But I'm still very skeptical that Miller's the guy that they would move up for. Now, obviously you have 6 and 11. That gives you a little bit of power to dictate some things in this draft. And maybe it's, another thing that I've said is they probably don't need to use both these draft picks. They shouldn't probably, right? They probably should use one of their picks at least to get a veteran. If they can combine both of them to move up and get a veteran player, that's probably the best way. I know something that I'm thinking about a little bit is kind of doing what you're doing. Or what you're saying the Blazers should do, have your foot in both waters. Add one rookie, trade one of the picks for a veteran, and use that to add to the roster. So it's definitely something you have to think about because the talent, at the end of the day, talent wins in this league. And you can make talent work together, especially with the way basketball is played today with so much versatility. And Brandon Miller's a versatile enough guy that you can at least make it work for a little bit while you're figuring things out.
Yeah, and I think there is a safe bet that he'll be better than who you get at 6. And that,
easily.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at some point it's like, okay, let's just do it and get there. Let's talk about the center swap. Blazer fans are ready to get rid of Yusuf Nurkic. Wendell Carter appeals to me, but I think the idea of Wendell Carter is really fun. Functionally, Wendell Carter isn't ideal. Why don't you think would you do the trade? Like, let's just start there. Would you do this trade? If it was on the table, would you do it?
I don't think I would do this trade right now.
Why not?
I think I think the contract situation with Nurkic compared to Wendell it's not ideal for this Magic team. Yes, Orlando has some money to spend right now, but Wendell Carter's contract is so nice.
For a young guy, right?
It's front loaded. I think he's making like 13 this year. It's going to be down to like 11 by the end of his contract. He's just such a solid player. He gives you some versatility. He can step out on the perimeter and shoot a little bit. So he gives like Paolo and Franz all the free space that they want in the paint. However, I will say this. I think that Yusuf Nurkic might be a better playoff center than Wendell Carter is because of the physicality that he brings. Wendell, I love Wendell. I think he could be a really great player. He's kind of rediscovered himself in Orlando, become the jack of all trades that everyone thought he was in the draft process. But he doesn't always bring the physicality that you need. And I do have some questions about, especially because he's not much of a rim protector. He's very much a positional defender, and he's usually in the right spots, and he's usually able to switch out and do all the things that you need him to do. But I do wonder when you get into the playoffs, how are teams going to target him? How are teams going to draw him away from the basket and eat the Magic up on the boards? Whereas I see Yusuf Nurkic as that bigger physical presence, that guy who can, knock someone over, to be frank, because sometimes in the playoffs, you need to knock somebody over. You need to be tough.
He is huge.
He's a big dude.
Helps. That helps. And he could guard Embiid if that's like the thing you need to do. I kind of think I would rather have the idea of Wendell Carter in the playoffs just because of the switchability. I think a little more versatility on defense. The physicality matters. And if the shooting isn't there always, like if he isn't a consistent shooter, he could shoot and pass a little bit. Like he's got skills. I understand your concerns, but I'd almost rather bank on his better switchability than just the bruiser of Nurk. But I think that shows you the differences in sort of like watching a guy up close and what you prefer.
Exactly. But to that point, we don't know what Wendell Carter looks like in a playoff series yet.
Right.
And so I've often told like Magic fans, like who've asked me about this, like, hey, because there's been a few Magic fans, certainly been a few national media people pitching a DeAndre Ayton trade. And I'll be like, Wendell Carter might be an issue, but that's an issue we can worry about 2-3 years from now. That's not an issue we have to worry about today. The issues that the Magic need to worry about are kind of adding those secondary pieces, adding some depth, and then figuring out what isn't working in the playoffs. Because if Wendell Carter holds his own but isn't perfect in the playoffs, then you can say, okay, this is where we need to upgrade. This is our weak spot for our team to develop in the postseason. Even if he plays well, even if he falls short, this is where we know we need to improve. And the problem with the Magic right now is they don't actually know what they need quite yet. They know they need shooting. That's about the only shooting and depth. That's really the only thing this team knows it needs right now.
Yeah. So I guess you rejecting the trade outright, it's going to make it hard for me to also ask for that 2025 Nuggets pick. Also, I'm not going to be able to snag that. I'm not going to be able to snag another one in there. I can't listen. What if it's Scoot? Does that change it?
Scoot changes it a little bit. I definitely think a little bit harder if it's Scoot, but to the same point, if the Magic are drafting second or third, you don't think too much about it. If you're keeping the pick, you're taking those players. But Scoot, to me, if you think he's better than Markelle Fultz, you do the deal. Like you move Markelle Fultz on, you do the deal, or you keep them both together and we let Markelle train Scoot, and then Scoot eventually takes over, or whatever the case is. But the same point that I have about Wendell, I have about Markelle. We don't know what playoff Markelle Fultz looks like. We don't know if the shooting problems that he has or the way teams defend his shot, we don't know how that changes in the playoffs or whether Markelle can make up for that in the playoffs. And so, honestly, so much of the core guys from Magic, I'm very skeptical the Magic are going to do anything major this offseason, because I think they want to see how their core guys respond to having some winning expectation, making the play-in tournament, making the playoffs, and seeing where teams attack them and what they actually need to improve.
Well, Blazer fans, I tried, y'all. Don't
Sorry.
listen. They blow me up sometimes in the comments that I don't negotiate hard enough on the Blazers' behalf, because I don't. But mainly because I don't.
There's something there. I'm not going to deny that there's something there.
Yeah,
I think it's a trade like the Carter Nurkic trade. There's something there. I just don't think now's the time.
Yeah,
so keep the phone number. We'll talk later.
Yeah, I don't think Nurk is sexy enough. Like Nurk is, the Blazers are getting off Nurk in this trade. What this is? They're saying we think Carter's upside is better. 3 is such a nice pick. This is such an opportunity. How many chances do you get to be in the, to get one of the 3 best players in your draft class? If you're the Magic, way too many. But like they've also had a lot of 8th picks, so it's like, it's
a lot of 6s.
Yeah, a ton of 6s, right? Like 5.
Yeah. Isaac Bamba in the last 5 years.
Yeah. So it's like, and they're kind of still searching for it. Like Jalen Suggs looks like an NBA player, but he can't shoot, but he's a pretty good defender. Cole Anthony is the opposite, right? He can only score and shoots every time he touches the ball, but he's not. What else does he do? It's like, they still need some help there. So I think the pitch is that, listen, 3 is your chance at real talent, but I can understand being like, I don't know, Wendell might be better than Nurk today. And we feel like he's going to be better than Nurk in 2 years, and he's younger and cheaper in 2 years. So like, why not? I hear it. Okay. When we were setting up this show,
I have to ask.
Yeah. When we were setting up this show, I said, Phil, do you want to come on? Do you want to talk about this trade? This kind of floating around. He said, yeah, I do. But can I pitch this? Can I ask you about Damian Lillard trade? So let's do that in the 3rd segment. Let's talk Damian Lillard. Join us there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richman, still chatting here with Phil Rossman-Reich, host of Locked On Magic. All right. Let's do it. Listen, let me
preface this. I was before the Locked On Network, I was in your shoes. Or, early mid Twitter, NBA Twitter with Dwight Howard. I get it. It's annoying being pitched and having every team kind of lining up like chomping at the bit. But I'm going to sit here and say, like, I don't have a specific pitch in mind.
I'll throw it back at you. I got you.
Okay. I'll probably come up with one too, but like, I want to preface this by saying this. Like I said, I don't think the Magic are going to make like a crazy big move. Like you mentioned earlier, Dame doesn't want to be nurturing young guys. He wants to win championships. He's the Kevin Garnett of this generation. He loves Portland. I love that he loves Portland. I love Dame. Dame is one of my favorite players in the league. I love him as a person. I love him as a player. I love everything about him. I get the loyalty, and I get that winning matters most. And he's only going to leave Portland for a chance that's clearly going to help him win. And I don't think the Magic are necessarily ready for that kind of an all-in trade yet. They don't have the pieces yet. They don't have the ability to trade all the assets away and still have something left in reserve. Right. Like to get Dame, I imagine you're asking for 6'11", the Nuggets 25, Magic 20, Magic 24, like a bunch of picks because you're restarting. Probably Franz Wagner, which I would understand.
So I would say that. Let me add some context, and then because you almost nailed it, right? So the Blazers aren't going to trade Dame. They don't want to. That's not what they want to do. That's not what the franchise wants to do. The reason that we'd get there this summer is because they'd go into the draft and they'd do what I've been doing, is they've been calling up Brooklyn, and they'd call Toronto, and they'd call Orlando, and everyone, like these dang Locked On hosts, would be like, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't want, and then the Blazers start saying, okay, well, to make a trade happen, our value on our end stinks, and we are overpaying, and we don't want to do we are getting to the organizational malpractice part of trade talks. We just got to take 3. We got to make a selection at 3. We got to add Brandon Miller. It's so much more valuable to have Brandon Miller on the roster than it is to make some deal for a vet. And Damian Lillard says, I thought we talked about this. That route is not my route. And that means his route is out of town. That's kind of just the way it is. There is like a middle ground here where they make a minor trade. They add a rookie. They kind of like, they perfectly thread the needle, and Dame's happy and all that. it just doesn't seem like Dame has been so clear about his wishes that I feel like the threading the needle has gotten significantly more challenging. So now they find themselves in this weird place where I just like, with all due respect to the City Beautiful,
No.
they wouldn't trade him to the Magic. They wouldn't trade him to the Magic because he would say, okay, I want to go somewhere I can win. And they're like, well,
They're not ready.
Yeah, like, well, they'll say, they were 29 and 28 in their final 57 games. Like, so
look, they got the rookie of the year. They got, Paolo's really good. I mean, you guys saw him. I think he had a big game. I think he had a big game in the win in Portland earlier this year. Or last.
I'm a Carolina guy. I've seen Paolo bunch.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Like they like. The only reason I broached the subject, at least for my Magic fans, is to have you say, like, they're not ready to win. A star like Dame isn't going to demand a trade to Orlando yet. But Orlando is starting to marshal those pieces together. As long as they got Paolo and Paolo continues to develop the way we think he's going to develop, I'm big on saying, like, look, the Magic need to re-sign Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony this offseason. Take care of them now because the salary slot's what's important. Jonathan Isaac isn't a $17 million player who's sitting on the bench. He's a $17 million salary that you can move in a trade. That's the way, especially for markets like Orlando and Portland, the way you make moves is by salary slots, is by making trades. And Portland, Portland's in a very similar situation, albeit with a star that is handling it much healthier than that Orlando was back in 2012 with Dwight Howard, where, Howard, the team had clearly kind of run its course.
Right.
The coach was straining on everybody. They frankly wasted their assets, made bad trades, and they got themselves stuck and they couldn't get back into contention. And Dwight Howard at that time, as crazy it might sound today, was a player that made you a contender no matter what. And Dame is that level of player still, where you matter because he's there. And he wants to matter in the bigger picture. And obviously you got to do something. Obviously that player's going to look around and say, like, I can't carry this team. I've carried this team as far as I can go to achieve the goals that I want. I might have to go somewhere else. And that's a difficult place to be stuck. Talking about the draft pick, that reminds me of another sad day in Magic history. When the Magic drafted Dwight Howard in 2004, Tracy McGrady was dead set on saying, take Emeka Okafor. If you're going to use the pick, take Emeka Okafor. I want the sure thing. I'm not waiting on an 18-year-old to grow up. And to the Magic's credit, I don't think they called his bluff. I think they'd already decided to trade T-Mac at that point. But they took Dwight Howard, and that was 100% the right decision. I think about it every day about what if Tracy McGrady had said, okay, I'll give this kid a chance. Could have waited two years. Maybe his back would have still given out the way it had. And who knows what would have happened. But, these stars have very limited time. Dame certainly has very limited time. Like I said, he's this generation's Kevin Garnett. Father Time is ticking on him, and he knows it. And if he wants to win a championship, he doesn't have time to wait for a team like Orlando to grow up, even if he would help them grow up quicker.
Okay. Damian Lillard has 3 kids. Three kids. They're all under 5, I believe. I don't know how old Dame Jr. is, but let's say they're all under 5. They love Disney. They want to get they're like, Disneyland's fine. Disney World is just better. It's just better. You got Epcot. It's just like, we want to move to Florida. Turns out Dame is a secret Disney adult. He's whatever I don't even know the Disney adult stuff.
Disney adult is the correct term.
He's into it. And he says, I want to go to Orlando. Does a deal, just yes or no? 6, 11, the Magic's 2024 pick and the Magic's 2027 pick and Franz Wagner and like Gary Harris and whoever to make the money work. Are you smashing the yes button, 4 picks and Franz for Damian Lillard?
If Dame is all on board with it, I think you have to do it. Like Dame, I'd have to check the finances again, because maybe you say, instead of giving up Gary Harris, would you take a Jonathan Isaac? His contract is non-guaranteed for the season. You can, you're rebuilding anyway. So
I think when you trade for him, though, it gets guaranteed. I think that's how that works.
And maybe it does.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure if you trade,
but he's got 1 year left on the deal. You're rebuilding anyway. Money. When you're rebuilding, money means nothing.
You actually, bad contracts are fine. Yeah, bad contracts are fine as long as you stay below.
Bad contracts. Say, give me. Kick in an extra first, kick in a lottery protected first. Well,
that's why I want that. I want that 2027 pick. It's like, how long until they're bad? It's like,
honestly, like if a deal like that came around, you have to stop because Dame is that level of player. And you have to start doing the next, without having the full terms of the deal, you have to start thinking, okay, we have this deal in place. What avenues does that open up for us in free agency? Because if the Magic, Dame's obviously making 30 some odd $million. And so,
43,
if the Magic
this year, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the Magic can send out about equal money, they still have $23 million in cap room. They could still go after guys to fill in their roster. Because like I said, the biggest problem for the Magic right now is just a lack of depth. If they're going after Dame Lillard, they can't be banking on Caleb Houston being the backup 3 and saying like Caleb's ready to go when he was a rookie last year, clearly a second round pick, the youngest player in last year's draft. That's not going to work. You do the deal because it's Dame Lillard. If he wants to be in Orlando, there's so few players that want to be in Orlando, for whatever reason. I love Orlando. I think people should move here. I understand why people don't. I understand why stars don't necessarily think of Orlando that way. But when you have a star of that level that wants to be in Orlando, if he's willing to give you 1 year to get the chessboard rearranged for him, you'll be in a position to win games very, very quickly. And if you think, again, it all hinges on, do you think Paolo Banchero is ready to be that guy? And if he's ready to be that guy,
how quickly can he be the second best player on a really good team? Right. I agree.
Yes,
agreed.
Exactly.
And from there, how quickly can he be the best player on a really good team? Right. It's like, how quickly can you say,
you're going to be managing. I mean, Dame's over 30. You're going to be managing his minutes a little bit, managing his time. You're going to give him designated days to sit so he can be ready for the playoffs when things really matter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we did it. Phil rejected my trade for 3 and traded for Damian Lillard. It's a perfect podcast. They did it. We did it. This was a bunch of fun. I think I like doing these. And for my listeners, if you haven't listened, go back in the feed, listen to the one about Mikal Bridges, listen to the one I did about Pascal Siakam. It's really good to get a sense of sort of what other fan bases, what trades happen because of money and because of cycles and team building. And I think it's a good sense to talk to other folks who cover the team closely to get a good sense. And Phil does a great job. So, hey, thanks so much for joining us. It was a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I appreciate you having you on. You learn about your own team when you start thinking about trades and transactions. So I always say when I'm talking about fake trades, the fake trade doesn't matter as much as the why of the fake trade. Like, why 100%. Would you do this? What is the thought process behind it? And that's what matters at this stage. It's like, okay, what are you actually thinking here?
There we go. I'm glad we're helping people get the why.
I want to thank Mike again for having me on his show on Locked On Blazers. You can check out Locked On Blazers wherever you download podcasts, just like you can check out Locked On Magic wherever you download podcasts. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter there at OMagicDaily, as well as at PhilipRR_MD. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you download podcasts, whether it's Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, all of them ways to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. We didn't get to it today, so we'll push it to tomorrow. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic for my everydayers, we're going to talk about the options for the Orlando Magic at the 11th pick in the draft. On Friday, we talked about the 6th pick. Tomorrow, we will talk about the 11th pick. We're really starting to dive into draft stuff here, so definitely stay tuned as we talk more about the NBA draft. We're now 1 month away from the NBA draft. It is going to come really, really quickly. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.